From the Clock Tower, this is the C.S. Lewis Book Club. I'm Dan.
And I'm Alex. Welcome to our book club. We're on a walking tour through Middle-earth. We've been wandering around a bit, but after some counsel with the Free Peoples, we finally got our bearings.
In this episode, we'll be talking about our experience in Book 2 of The Fellowship of the Ring. We're not reviewing the book, but we still might spoil it if you haven't read it yet. So if you don't want that, and if you honestly are like me and haven't read Lord of the Rings before, we'll be waiting right here for you when you get back.
Also, there's a video version of this conversation on YouTube
because that's what the free people want.
If that's your thing.
Awesome.
I'm more a listener than a watcher. And especially after, the Door of Moria, watchers kind of freak me out.
That's fair. Do we have housekeeping, or are you going to give us our summary today? Summary.
Okay, let's just go right into the summary. I don't know. Do we have housekeeping?
There's been a space between our last recording. I think Alex shaved his beard and it's come back. So we probably feel like there's more housekeeping than you feel.
That's right. Because by the time you get around to this episode,
it was tomorrow.
Tomorrow or yesterday. Or I don't know how time works. We've been in Lothlórien, apparently.
That's true.
So here's the summary. You said book 2, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Frodo awakes in Rivendell, a council led by Elf Lord Elrond. I'm going to say that again. A council led by the Elf Lord. This is okay. A council led by the
the Elf. It's the and Elf.
It's been a while.
Elf. The Elf.
A council led by the Elf Lord Elrond decides that the One Ring must be destroyed, and having shown his resilience to the ring's evil power, Frodo volunteers to take the ring to Mount Doom, where it was forged, and the only place where it can be unmade. A fellowship of 9 companions is formed and accompanies Frodo on this quest. Shortly into their journey, the fellowship reluctantly passes through the ancient and deserted Dwarven Mines of Moria, where they are besieged by orcs and a Balrog, an ancient demon of shadow and flame. In the ensuing battle, Gandalf confronts the Balrog, allowing the rest of the Fellowship to escape Moria, but in so doing, falls into the abyss. The remaining Fellowship seeks refuge in the elven realm of Lothlórien. They are welcomed by Lady Galadriel, who bestows gifts and blessings upon them. The journey continues by boat down the River Anduin to the Falls of Rauros, where, compelled by treachery, Frodo breaks from the Fellowship, accompanied only by Sam. I made it through.
You did great. And actually, this is really well written. So
thank you. That's
just comfort my heart and tell me this was not ChatGPT.
It was not. I've decidedly stopped using that. It's funny because I do another podcast where I even teased that I would use chat to help me write the scripts, and it can't write script because it loses all meaningful voice.
Human.
Yeah. So so for a while I felt like maybe it was more helpful, but it's not anymore. I don't know if that's me getting better as a writer, which I doubt. I just think it's the entropy of the AI, the fake brain.
Biased but third party. I actually think you have improved. But
thank you.
I like Falls of Rauros.
That's a good sound. Yeah.
Like Boromir.
And remember, when we're reading these books, it's important to realize that that's a lot of the reason Tolkien's writing these. When you find fun names, even like Bilbo and Frodo, it's not by accident. The sound of words is very intentional. And also they have meaning behind them. I'm not sure if Rauros is an elven word or who knows, but
he was good at his craft.
Yeah, when you say Rauros, it should kind of evoke some sort of it's a powerful waterfall.
So for themes, my theme that I saw through book 2 was agency, that you have all of these different representatives of the different races coming together, and then they join together to go on this quest to save all of goodness to save Middle Earth. And there seems to be throughout it just this interplay of a test of people's ability to choose, and a test of people's ability to overcome themselves, whereas the ring is about compelling. The fellowship has to be the opposite.
Oh yeah, that's a great thing, because I'd thought of this because Elrond binds Frodo to an oath. He's oath bound in his quest, but he reminds everybody else that they haven't.
Yeah,
they haven't made the oath. They're only in this fellowship as far as they want to be, and we see that's kind of that's.
And I want to talk about that when Gimli kind of debates him on this, like if you're not willing to commit before you go into the darkness, what are you really worth? And that's a really interesting...
Right, but Elrond won't bind him. So Gimli can bind himself. Right?
Yeah.
And I think, that's an important distinction between what is binding you. Is it this outside pressure or force, or is it your own will?
Yeah.
And I've gone down this rabbit hole a little bit with free will, agency, and
determinism.
And covenants. And it's interesting that Christians specifically, the covenant is super important, even though agency is super important. And it's weird. Why do we have this religious rite that almost is intentionally taking away agency? And I think that gets at something about agency being true in a higher reality, in a transcendent reality that we can't have access to unless we yield it.
And in that, I think it's a false dichotomy of that you're giving up your agency for the covenant. And in my mind, you're not more free because you didn't enter into a covenant.
Right. Exactly.
You might think you are.
Right. But there's something paradoxical about it.
But you've given, yeah. Right.
Cool. That's a great theme.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot to it. Keep going.
I'm jealous because that's a good theme. I have treasure and treachery. I like the way that those words work together. And also, this is something that maybe we'll talk about a little more. This is what's on my mind is Boromir. And Boromir is great. I saw this funny video of, it's just this, it was a guy watching the death of Boromir, which will come later.
He dies?
Uh-oh.
Oh my gosh.
I forgot. You're the one who needs the spoiler alerts.
You only are allowed to spoil until the book that we've read.
I'm so sorry. In the movie, it happens at the end of the Fellowship movie, but you're right. This book ends before that.
He's very much alive and very sad. He's in the depths of despair right now. He's not dead.
I'm so sorry. This is like as bad as telling you Darth Vader's Luke's father.
It really is.
But that's a good reaction because the video is this guy watching the death of Boromir and says, in childbirth, the pain is so much that women can almost understand what it's like for a man to watch Boromir die.
That's gonna upset some people.
I'm like, my hands are sweaty for having spoiled that to you. I know you haven't watched the movies, but I thought, oh man, I'm so sorry. Anyway, for a dumb joke.
It was a good joke.
But it's good. It's good. I'm glad you're there with the books even, because this idea of Boromir being treacherous, that's kind of how I even brought him up right now. And there's a sermon that I listened to once about, it's called the evil behind the smiling eyes. And, Jesus telling us that where our treasure is, there our heart is also. And so much of dishonesty is dishonesty with ourselves, and wearing a mask, intentionally putting on a mask to fool people and even ourselves away from what our true intentions are. And I think that's where Boromir we see that maybe it's the opposite side of the agency and the willingness and the volunteering to take on this task. The opposite side is to pretend like you're brave. And the treachery hides behind that dishonesty, always.
Yeah, we should. I want to go to your other
Okay, I don't
theme
want.
because I do want to come back to Boromir. I
We
think,
will.
yeah, we will, even though he won't be back apparently. You've also got power, flame of light
Yeah,
or
the
shadow.
most powerful part of this, and this is interesting because I did not expect this. This scene in the movies, the confrontation of the Balrog, is one of the most epic movie demonstrations of like a book coming to life. It's very powerful. Music's intense. It's beautiful and thrilling.
Yeah.
And
Who's the actor that plays Gandalf in the movie?
Ian McKellen, Sir
Ian
McKellen.
Such a good job.
Yeah, and the Balrog. A lot of the depictions are poetic, and so the idea of the Balrog having wings is a poetic
Wall to wall.
description, right? And we're going to play that in this. We're going to play that clip, but it's depicted. There's a lot of things in the movies that are depicted visually that are meant metaphorically. Even like the eye of Sauron is more like a big brother kind of eye instead of a flaming eye on a tower sort of thing. But I understand why they did that in the movie. It actually, it gets to the point very literally about this, what they're facing. But that scene is so powerful that in my mind, I was just kind of expecting that it wouldn't be as intense in the book. But it's intense in a very different way, in a way that I don't think a movie could get across.
All of Moria is intense.
Yeah.
That whole chapter. I loved it.
And so that's the idea of the shadow and flame and power. It's like when people talk about money being the root to all evil. And it's not money, it's the love of money. It's what money can do for you. And if you're thinking about money to have power over people, but money can do a lot of good, which is very difficult. There's something about the ring in money, and so loving it is actually where the danger comes from. Lewis talks about that with his realization, or Ransom's realization in Paralandra, right? Maybe it's the love of being able to repeat a pleasure instead of letting it come to finality. So there's something about money that's this power, and what it really does, it's like a flame. It's like fuel. A fuel, like think of rocket fuel. It can either blast off a rocket and get it to where it's trying to go. It could be really powerful if directed and confined, but unconfined, it's a bomb. And so that idea of power, and that's the problem with the ring, is it's so much power. Whatever the power is, that's never really quite defined. It's never really confined, that it has this potential to be explosive. So much potential that seems to be what even will happen to Frodo if he holds on to the ring. It's ultimately corrupting.
So I need to throw all my money in Mountain Doom. Is that what I understand?
I think I gave it a qualifier for money being diminished, compared. But the idea of shadow and flame, because that comparison, that's what they say the Balrog is, a shadow and flame.
Yeah. And
flame, if used for light, great. In fact, Gandalf calls himself the servant of the secret fire.
Yeah.
The flame.
And it reminds me when, well, we'll talk about it when we get to the quote. Yeah.
But that idea that flames burn, and you get to decide if you're going to burn like a flame. You get to decide whether or not you'll burn for light. And there's a song that uses this figure of speech, whether for light or for ashes. And so that's the idea. You have Gandalf in a very real way, an intentional way. Balrog is the anti-Gandalf. The Balrog, because there are multiple Balrogs. Balrog is kind of a anyway. Well, I don't want to nerd out about that just yet, but so the Balrog is this fire that's burning for darkness. He represents in a lot of ways the power of the ring, and that's the theme.
You also have some allusions to C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, what came to your mind while we were reading this book?
Well, for me, going along with my theme of agency, there's there's the stories, if I'm thinking of the Narnia series, where the main characters are cast into the ocean. They're kind of pulled into the story. Again, they didn't choose to jump in. But then I'm thinking when Peter and the kings and queens of Narnia choose to go back and like follow the lamppost and go back. Or once after they discover that, what's his name? The faun.
Tumnus.
When they discover Tumnus is gone, they again have that, now it's the agency part taking over the story. And, Lord of the Rings, I think it's important that Frodo has so many opportunities, and he even tries when he finds, because he's a moral character, when with Lady Galadriel, you're wise, you're powerful, you take the ring. I don't know if there was a moment with Gandalf where he probably tried to give the ring to him, but I think there was in Bilbo's house.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyways, he stays with the quest out of moral obligation, but he's not pushed into this. And it's something that just over and over, he has these different opportunities where you just continue to see him exercising his agency towards morality. What about you? C.S. Lewis allusions to...
In Moria, it reminded me of the cave in Paralandra. And even when they start hearing Gollum behind them. That was more just kind of a visual illusion. And but that idea, it actually made me think of Gollum in a different way. I think he's a comedic character enough in the movies that you forget how wretched he is. And kind of following them this whole time, and Aragorn being aware of it, and
he's unmanned himself over time.
Exactly. There was an unmannedness about him.
Yeah.
And it made it a little creepier to add to the creepiness of Moria.
Yeah.
Also, I have Galadriel and the Gifts, and it had a very Father Christmas kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, I like that.
And then going back to kind of the council and the ring, and why not to use the ring, reminded me of Ransom saying we can't use our enemies' weapons against them. And realizing that it's like tying your hands behind your back in a way. But for virtue's sake, if you beat your enemies with their weapons, you become as bad as them. So if your side has any virtue on its side, it's lost in that bargain,
Yeah, but I want to talk about that when we get to Boromir, and also Council of Elrond. I think that theme runs through this whole part. I love it.
Okay, well, let's then take a break, and we'll get there.
Hi, my name is Theo, and I have a podcast called The Theo Show, where me and my dad talk about interesting things we're learning and try to understand them better. It's a short, fun podcast for kids and parents to enjoy together. And if you like learning new things in a simple way, this podcast is for you. So after this episode, go check out The Theo Show on Spotify or Apple Podcast. See you there!
Okay, welcome back.
Welcome. Before we jump in, I do have a side note. New music, and I know this is probably going to be applied to past episodes, but we're just hearing it for the first time.
That's right.
Randall.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was always one of my favorite things about our C.S. Lewis episodes and how it changed between books. And so
some of the direction I gave him for this one is that it should feel like a walking song, right? There should be a rhythm to it that kind of feels like you're on a walking tour.
It felt like you could have been used for the Pilgrim's Regress. When we did
it's very similar to, maybe it's that one.
Just that
one of
journey type feel.
We're lucky to have that, to have Randall working for us. So,
all right, Alex, where do you want to start as the fellow? We're in Rivendell. Mm-hmm. They have the council. They're about to set off.
See, this is tricky for me, and a lot of it is I know the movies so well, so I need to. I've been trying to focus on things that don't really come across so much there, and so at the beginning of this book, we see Bilbo writing a song with Aragorn, right? Or writing a poem together.
Yeah.
And he's even challenging the elves to see if they can pick out who wrote what part.
Yeah.
And the elves kind of teasingly, but I think humorously say, well, we can't tell the difference between two mortals. So just like little
Jab.
a jab with a lot of history behind it. But I don't know. I felt so much better about Bilbo than I think that I'd thought of him before. Like, he really is doing, I think, he's acting appropriately for somebody who's been on their own epic journey. He's coming back. He's very interested in the story aspect of it, which is an indication of a matured sense of meaning, is that you look back at the story. He might be a little aloof to the danger that Frodo's in and more concerned with him finishing his book. But, like, being excited that Aragorn's there so they can finish their song. I just think it's kind of cool. And then we get that.
They almost just died a second ago. Like, the Nazgul almost got him.
Yeah. And it's there's maybe a touch of the back in I was real big in the 80s sort of attitude.
But I love, isn't it when they're talking about who's going to go on this quest to destroy the ring, that isn't it Bilbo who's like, all right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a little old, but let me stretch and get in shape again.
Right. Yeah. And I think
A little Rocky 3 montage.
this is a different journey than Bilbo went on. This one's a lot more. This one is more. I know there are words for it. Is it clandestine, or Bilbo's was more seeking fortune kind of adventure, and this is to prevent the destruction of the entire world.
Yeah.
And even going back to that walking song, which kind of comes up that Bilbo wrote, when Frodo is remembering Bilbo's walking song at the beginning of last book, instead of eager feet, he says weary feet. And I think that is kind of the vibe shift, right? Bilbo's journey was with eager feet. Maybe the tookishness was having a harder time coming out, but that's what it was. He was going out with excitement and adventure.
Yeah.
And Frodo, it's all obligation. It's duty. It's this thing that I think I feel a lot more about adventure than you feel, right? Obviously, this is context specific, but you can see the difference. There's a different vibe to it. And I actually think that Frodo's is more relatable. I think the idea of the duties that you have to, whatever the adventure is, looking back on your life at the end of it, it will be something that you might look at it like Bilbo, but you're putting rose-colored glasses on it a little bit, only remembering the victories and not the boredom and the anguish and the terror and just the sore feet. I don't know.
I mean, I think I can almost look at different parts of my life happening at the same time and say, this is more, I would say maybe my career is more of a Bilbo-esque adventure. I mean, there were definitely parts of his journey where he was tired and the mountains seemed forever off and they were making slow progress. But overall, there was an adventure to something they were trying to obtain.
Yeah.
And, it still requires courage and, you're trying to be... he's still trying to exercise moral courage throughout that journey. It still made him grow as a hobbit. But the difference is there's other parts of my life that I would say I'm pursuing something that is what I see as a moral obligation. And I think there are good things at the end of that, or there's treasure maybe, or however you want to say that. But more, I'm on that path because I feel like it's a moral obligation.
Yeah.
And I could say that maybe more weary feet type feeling, but I'm not leaving the path.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminded me of the puddleglum nature of Sam in a lot of this. Like, he's kind of, he's duty bound almost more than Frodo is, right? 'Cause
yeah.
He's duty bound to Frodo. And so he's kind of like a little bit of wet blanket attitude towards some of this. And And if you reframe it like Puddleglum, it's like, oh, I get it. I see why that's important for him to have that perspective. You have kind of Pippin who's wanting to go on this, and the first time, when is it that he says, had I known this would happen, I wouldn't have come. He says it pretty quickly. I think it's just at the door of Moria and the Watcher,
Is this Sam says it pretty quickly?
It's Pippin. When they're leaving, Elrond kind of suggests that they not go.
Oh, yeah.
And Gandalf says, he's recognizing this friendship obligation between the hobbits. And so he makes the case for Merry and Pippin to go with them. And, Pippin's got this. So there's something deep here. And I don't know if my mind's wrapped around it. But there's something about like some of the journey that we need to go on, or the task that we need to take. If we knew what it would take, we wouldn't go.
Yeah.
But it's still important that we go. So a little bit of ignorance is important to do the things that you need to do, because you have to kind of put prudence aside, I guess. So like, I think Frodo makes statements like this, but that's a statement from Pippin where he's like, had I known what we would be doing, I would have listened to Elrond's counsel. I would have stayed behind and not gone. And that's not a regrettable thing. I think our lives are like that. There are aspects of my life that I know that if all I knew at the time of making the decision whether to do it was how hard it would be, I wouldn't have done it. Mm-hmm. But having done it after the fact, I'm glad I did the imprudent thing.
Yeah. It reminds me, the Hobbit line, the best stories are the ones that you didn't enjoy it when it was happening.
Yes.
But it's after you get through it.
Yeah. I
don't want to cut you.
Well, what I'm doing right now is I'm thinking, how much should we look at it chronologically? Because where I really thought about this was the portages. So, and that's because of a recent experience that I had with portaging. I'm not even sure if that's the verb for it, but
here, I'll add a note. We're talking portaging when we get to the other part of the book. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go to portaging. So,
okay.
So throw that out there.
I'm curious. As they were leaving, Elrond, when he starts giving them kind of their farewell address, it sounded very scriptural to me, and that was the thought that came to my mind as he's talking. And a couple of the lines, you cannot foresee all ends and how each road will end. So he wants them to know, we all have no idea how this is all going to end up, but we're still going to go out on the quest. Then the company has been chosen by fate. That it wasn't like with the Hobbit, Gandalf organizes the team, gives them their mission, sends them out the door.
Yeah, Boromir shows up that morning or something.
But everybody kind of coalesce around this for different reasons. If you cannot go on, you may depart and you may be broken. And this was kind of what we were talking about, where he gets into the debate with Gimli about that
commitment. Right?
No one needs to make this commitment that they're never going to leave this. They're all just going out on this quest with their free will because they've decided to come together, and there's a lot of things about this that seems very illogical. If I know I have this quest and I need to destroy this ring and there's innumerable enemy forces, shouldn't I use strategy? And this is where I think you can have a lot of sympathy, and we're probably trying not to go here yet, but with Boromir, and before he dies, but this is Boromir's argument. What are we doing?
Yeah.
And I think Elrond, what he's trying to tell them before they go is, this quest isn't going to be won by having the right strategy to attack the enemy forces.
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to put on our secret outdoor cloaks that the elves gave us and sneak over there. And that's just, it doesn't seem logical, but I think it's interesting, and it's driving at what the book's, one of the main topics the book's trying to point us at.
Yeah. Gandalf's line, "Let folly be our cloak."
Yeah.
Where he's talking about the enemy will see this as folly, what we're trying to do. And because of that, that's going to be the way that their purpose will be hidden.
Where would you say that's instructive for you? When would you say taking that approach to something is helpful?
Well, it's the perception of folly. So I think of just that idea of, okay, don't use your enemy's weapons against them. And from a perspective of winning, of just total power, that's folly, right? You're not going to use the most powerful weapons that obviously are working against
like
you.
Batman disarms the guy with the gun. It's
That's
like,
right.
just pick up the gun.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No guns. So like that's folly, the no guns idea for Batman. But it's fighting a different battle. So if your enemy can't understand what your motivation is, then yeah, it is. So it's broadening to the perspective of what's the real battle here. It's not just that the good guys beat the bad guys. It's that the good guys are good guys. That's the battle, right? It's understanding the only reason to win a war is so that the Shire can exist, so that there can be a place of peace and goodness. And if you sacrifice goodness on the way to winning that war, you've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. The power motivation is much narrower than the virtue motivation. So I will look foolish if I give up the second thing of power to the first thing of virtue. You know? I'm not sure exactly. You asked me to, that was my roundabout way of abstracting, so I wouldn't have to come up with something specific to my life. But I don't know. I think that's people argue about this. You know, who's right, Boromir or Frodo? You know,
right. I'm thinking about what is it? Luke 22. Probably the wrong chapter, but where Christ just says, after they've taken your life, they've taken everything they can take from you.
Mm-hmm.
So aren't you better off now? Because you still have this. And if you believe that goodness is eternal and it's more important than your life,
mm-hmm.
then this can be logical. If you don't, or if your faith wavers, this starts to look really silly.
Yeah. That's where you get a lot of the divide between religious and non-religious people, right? You can have certain aspects or perceptions, interpretations of virtue from a secular perspective. But when it comes to stuff like this, it kind of falls apart because then it's just illogical, right?
Yeah.
From that paradigm of belief. And so that's why I think there is an important thing. You can't just be as virtuous as, I guess, you're capable of being if you have got a pessimistic and materialistic viewpoint of who you are, your identity, or the existence of your soul.
Yeah. I love it. It forces you to I like that J.R.R. Tolkien has created this character to force you to confront that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
That is largely the conflict between men and elves, is the ephemerality of the human life or of the life of men. So in that way, Boromir is the quintessential man, where Aragorn is more of this bridge between elf and man.
Yeah. Anything else from before they head out?
No.
Okay.
Let's get out there.
Did you want to go into Moria now, or do you want to wait for the quote?
I do think we should talk a little bit about Gandalf's story and excuse for why he wasn't there for Frodo at Bree, and that he'd been taken captive by Saruman.
Yeah.
There's this thing, I'm sure that if we looked it up, we could find an in-depth analysis on why he is not Saruman the White anymore, but Saruman of many colors. And that got me thinking just about that white is all the colors in harmony. And to separate break something up, because this is something that Gandalf says to Saruman, is to break something
just to find out what it's made of.
To find is folly, right?
Has left the path of wisdom.
Right. And that reminds me of the Pilgrim's Regress and reason and understanding what is the color of things. What is it, like the inside of a body, what color is it? You know? And it's like, well, it doesn't make sense. It's inside. So you can't see it. This deconstructionism that is so popular in our modern pseudo-philosophies, it ruins something so that you can pretend that you know what it is, right? Koryakin saying, no, that's only what a star's made of. But that, even in your world, that's not what a star is. Yeah. And things having meaning beyond just their composite parts, I think, is an important part to understanding what the world is. We're not just the sum of our parts. We're greater. There's something synergetic about us. Yeah. Right. And not just us, but everything that has meaning. Even in like food, deconstruction kind of ruins things, right? You could have a deconstructed hamburger and it's like, okay, you're eating a patty by itself and cheese by itself and lettuce by itself. There's something magical about a hamburger, you know? That is the most like basic and dumbed down version of the meaning of something, by everything being together. But for the sake of power, you can justify your motivations if you use it's just this, right? Like that phrase.
And Saruman specifically, this was the line that I'd written down, was, Gandalf and I, if we team up and we have the ring, power to organize all things like only the wise can see. You've got Gandalf, you've got Lady Galadriel, you've got Tom Bombadil. These seem to be the few characters that actually had the opportunity to take the ring and were strong enough to deny that, right? Galadriel says, if I had the ring, I could make all things right, and I could be the most beautiful and the most this and whatever. And even Sam says something like, you could make right what's gone wrong in the Shire. And it's this attractiveness of, if I use the enemy's weapon, I can use it for good. I can use it to bring about the change that, especially for the wizards, it seems to be about wisdom, that they have the wisdom to control it and to use it for
power, right?
What's the greater good.
Sure, right. Which is always defined by your unique perspective of what good is. And that's the separating white into many colors. It's like, well, if we look at it from the red angle, see how justified I am from red. Like, yeah, but blue, you know? And so I think that's kind of maybe the significance. I'm sure somebody's done I know that somebody's done a more in-depth look at what the meaning of that deconstruction from Saruman's perspective. It's always been difficult for me, even my first time reading this as a kid, that somebody so powerful and seemingly not omniscient, but with more a broader perspective. He's one of the Istari. Is still susceptible, that's right. It's tempting. And I think the movies kind of portray Gandalf as being just goodness. But you can see he's kind of snappy, especially at Pippin. He's short-tempered a lot.
Quick to laugh and quick to temper.
Yeah. So
that was his song that they wrote about him.
Oh, yeah. It always bothered me as a kid that Saruman went bad because he should know better. And maybe that's true. But it's this assumption that once I get to a certain place, once my, let's say, testimony or my faith gets to a certain level, then I won't ever have to worry about being tempted again.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's the brighter the angel, the darker the devil when it falls. And I think that's obviously that's a perspective and motivation to writing Saruman like that. I guess it's hard for me to believe it.
Yeah. What he's teaching, or at least what you see in these characters, is exactly what Christ was trying to say. Become like a little child. That you don't fight Saruman with
his weapon,
the strengths, that, with our wisdom, with our power, with our beauty. That's not going to work. You have to be Sam and Frodo. You have to be unassuming, humble, and committed to doing the right thing, even when it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's what, like, the cloak of folly is, I think, humble enough to recognize your fallibility, your weakness, whatever else. Like, Galadriel was able to pass the test because she recognized, I too would fall prey to this if I took it.
Yes. Yeah, and in Saruman's mind, he still saw himself as the opponent of Sauron.
Yeah.
There are a couple lines about, like, even he was already building his army in Isengard before he had, like, yielded to the power of Sauron.
Yeah.
And so this, in his mind, I'm sure he was justifying, no, this is to fight. It's to fight Sauron.
Yeah.
And then we can have power. And there's a line about it, but in the movie it's said really concisely, where Gandalf says, there's only one Lord of the Rings, and he does not share power.
Yeah.
The same line said in the book, just kind of a little different. But that idea is like, I think that would be something that would cut at Saruman. Like, this objective, you better, if you're going to join forces, it's not like you're going to be at the top and just, we won, Sauron,
Yeah. Yeah.
is he doesn't share power. And I think that's just the pragmatic angle of trying to join forces with evil.
Yeah. In fact, his influence is encouraging you to take his power.
That's right.
Take it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Use it. Become powerful.
Right.
It'll just play into my game.
Yeah.
All right.
Strike me down.
Should we take a break, or do you have...
No, it's break time.
All right. Let's do it.
Today's episode is brought to you by Asking Meaningful Questions. Have you ever asked a question and then realized you already knew the answer? Or maybe you asked something just because you felt like talking. That's okay sometimes, but learning to ask questions with a purpose is an important skill for finding out what you don't already know. A meaningful question starts with thinking. Think about what you already know and what you're still trying to figure out. Then, ask the question that helps you fill in the missing piece. That's what makes the question meaningful. It comes from your own thinking and helps you learn something new. If you're not sure what to ask, go back to what you already know. What's missing? Is any of it still confusing? That's where the best questions come from. And if you just feel like talking, that's fine too. You don't have to turn it into a question. Just say what's on your mind. That helps people know you're there and want to connect. Asking meaningful questions shows people you're really thinking, and they'll want to help you find what you're looking for. Okay, now back to the show.
Okay, welcome back.
Hi.
We're going to start this section with our quoted text because this is in Moria. Gandalf is confronting the Balrog. I think this is the most appropriate thing to share audibly with this. I'm using the Andy Serkis version because...
It's a hard judgment to get to, but I'm glad you did.
Well, because, the way it's talked about in the book is different than the movie, a little bit. But the movie does such a good job of getting a lot of the feeling there. Maybe with just intensity. But I think Legolas being freaked out is kind of adds to the intensity. But I'm going to play this. I'm going to play the Andy Serkis instead of Rob Ingalls because Rob Ingalls, I think, did this before the movie come out. So he didn't have Ian McKellen to draw from.
I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. You cannot pass! The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun. Go back to the shadow. You cannot pass! The Balrog made no answer. The fire in it seemed to die, but the darkness grew. It stepped forward slowly onto the bridge, and suddenly it drew itself up to a great height, and its wings were spread from wall to wall. But still Gandalf could be seen glimmering in the gloom. He seemed small and altogether alone, grey and bent like a wizened tree before the onset of a storm.
That image of Gandalf is almost powerful in its weakness.
Yep.
Which is crazy to be able to do just so quickly and poetically.
Wizened tree.
Well, he calls himself the servant of the secret fire.
Yeah.
Right. And that's in comparison to the shadow and flame.
Well, when we were talking about, when you brought up the shadow and flame earlier, I thought of this part when it says that when Gandalf says that to him, and it says he doesn't respond, and then his fire gets smaller, like his fire dims, but the darkness grows.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it made me think of, that allusion to are you fire for light or fire for ashes, that like his fire was for darkness, and then the wings like encompass, you can just see it like encompassing the whole room around Gandalf. It's cool.
Yeah, there is something freaky about that. My experience with fire in like a burning way, and then it being dark as well. I don't know. There's something that gives like this intensity to it.
Yeah.
And watching the way that the other members of the Fellowship respond to the Balrog, especially Legolas, who knows what it is. Not everybody else knows what's going on.
Yeah.
What this new devilry is, but Legolas does, and he freaks out. And I'm not sure if we've gotten too much about like Legolas being super Legolasy, like awesome, yet. We do later when they're on the Anduin. But I don't know. Knowing who he is, that he's an elf, there's something about being an elf. It's not just a different type of race. They're all ancient, and they're all very powerful. It's just their motivations are very different than men, and kind of like the eagles, where it's like, why aren't the eagles just helping them do everything? Well, because this isn't their business, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. For some reason, I was just like, because I listened to both Rob Ingalls and Andy Serkis. I actually like listening to Moria through with Rob Ingalls a little more, because it's not trying to draw from our having watched the movie. But I do think that Andy Serkis gives it the intensity that it deserves.
I agree. I like it.
And Ian McKellen, just with that line, the "you shall not pass," is he like immortalized that line, which is kind of like I don't know, that just look at the artistic weaving of language there. When you read the book, it's not like that line stands out above anything else. He's just saying, you can't pass this bridge. I'm protecting the Fellowship so they can escape, and you're not going to pass here. But
yeah.
Ian McKellen makes it like this iconic moment. It's beautiful. And if you haven't watched the movie,
Tell me not to.
I'm kidding.
I committed after we finish the book, I'm going to go watch the movies.
Yeah, good. I'm going to watch it with you, and I'm going to be the guy who's just like side-eyeing you every time you should have an emotional response to something.
I love it. Yeah, I like what you're pointing out, that I think maybe in a typical confrontation that Gandalf charges forward and attacks the Balrog and wins the fight or something like that. But instead, it's almost like, this is your realm of darkness. This is just where I'm drawing the line and saying, like, this is as far as you're coming.
Go back.
There's something cool about that.
Yeah. And that power, it's all of the Balrog's, well, I wouldn't say all of it, but a lot of his power is just in his presence. And so the juxtaposition of this wizened, withered old man on this bridge, that juxtaposition almost helps give a perspective to where the power of each is. He calls the Balrog the Flame of Udun. I think that's I'm not sure, but I think that's another name for, well, it's like the depths or the darkness, kind of like a hell sort of illusion. It's not the halls of Mandos. That's different form of afterlife. But and then he calls him the wielder of the flame of Anor, which is the sun, right? And so he gives this real intentional juxtaposition in his proclamation. Well, it's not a proclamation, but in his like I don't know if it's a threat, but he's evoking powers with his speech there and saying and making this stark contrast between their powers. And a Balrog is a Maiar, which is the same thing, same level of, I guess you could say, angelic power that the Astari or the wizards are. So they're even on their level of power. So it's a real even matchup, basically.
Well, we lose Gandalf, just like Boromir.
Mm-hmm.
And
how did you feel about losing, like even when Gandalf says that he's going to be part of the Fellowship, and it's not granted that he will at the beginning, and just how relieved Frodo is.
Yeah.
You know, he's also that way with Aragorn. What did it feel like, though? I mean, because we're at the end of this book, but this is like their first adventure on the journey.
I mean, losing Gandalf, to me, it's whatever toehold this story had on their adventure being a logical, probable, successful outcome is gone.
Yeah, right.
Like, with Gandalf, like anything kind of could happen, and you never knew when he was going to call in his eagle buddies or use some power you didn't know he had. And
yeah, even Aragorn,
once he's gone, it's like,
yeah,
you guys are toast.
Yeah, even Aragorn in Moria, like he's like, don't be afraid, guys. I've seen him. You should hear the stories they tell about him in Rivendell. Like there is some Deus Ex Machina kind of effect of Gandalf being there in a similar way to The Hobbit, right? When he leaves before they go into Mirkwood.
Yeah.
And so I think there's intentionally, as far as the play out of the story and understanding this hero's journey, it's important that he's gone now.
Yeah.
And they're lost. I mean, they spent a lot of the next, going down the river, not even knowing which way they're going to go, right?
Yeah.
Or deciding. It takes till the end of this book before they decide whether they're not even going to go to Minas Tirith or straight to Mount Doom.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the cause of a lot of the breaking of the Fellowship, is that indecision. And I guess that doesn't really come across so much in the movies because we're so used to stories being told to us in that fashion. I think that that we just assume everybody knows what's going on all the time and the plan is already made. But this like wallowing in indecision because your guide is gone, I think is very relatable to what it's like to be on this, to have a task and to need to develop and need to do a difficult thing.
It's also depressing we're not even trying to make stories or movies like this anymore, because now apparently they're making the movies because they know we're on our phones while we're watching them.
Oh man, yeah, they're making it everything center like concentrated, so
they have to reiterate the plot 4 times.
right.
Anyways, that'd be cool if a director came along and was like, known for like, I make movies that you can't be on your phone or you won't like the movie.
Yeah. Could we even trust that to be anything more than a gimmick though?
No, maybe not. All right. Lothlórien, the world that exists because of a ring of power.
Oh man, all I want is a Malorn tree in my yard.
That'd be awesome.
I don't know. If Middle Earth is Earth before our present time, then they've got to exist somewhere, right?
What do you see in Lady Galadriel?
There's a lot of
is this kind of like what is it, Tom Bombadil and Lady
Goldberry?
Goldberry?
Yeah.
Is there any Goldberry in Lady Galadriel? Definitely.
Galadriel takes a little more stewardship over Middle Earth. She's a little more part of it. The Galadriel's tricky too because her character has been to lament the way of modern storytelling, her character has been taken into a different direction by Amazon's Rings of Power series. And I understand that it's the growth of a character, but I don't know. There's something about just wisdom, almost angelic wisdom. She does go through the trial of the ring being offered to her and what it would turn her into, and even she is not above that corruption. But I do like having these characters that are almost just there for you to love.
Yeah.
Just to admire. And that's what's kind of fun, that Gandalf's not exactly that. I think he in the movies, he plays that role as well. But he's a little more human, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And then Galadriel is, there is a difference between elves and men, and seeing the way it's that Eldilic difference. There's this Eldilic aura about Celeborn and Galadriel. And she does, this is where it reminded me, obviously, of Father Christmas, but her being somebody who bestows gifts is almost like this patron saint kind of character. She's not really, obviously, her ring is caught up in the with the One Ring, and if that's destroyed, she's sacrificing everything of her own kingdom. She'll diminish and go into the Undying Lands. She says, and remain Galadriel. Galadriel, I think, means the Lady of Light. The people of Lothlórien are called the Galadrim, but they're not because of Galadriel, but because they're the people of the trees. And so there's an intentional, double entendre of that prefix, that Galad prefix, that it's both light and tree in either different languages or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, I kind of dabbled in going down this, and it's probably not very worthwhile to get stuck on it. But that phrase of her saying that she will remain Galadriel is interesting. There's something about a renaming, that if she were to take on a different motivation, it would almost come with a name change. And that happens to characters, right? Even Gandalf goes through a little bit of a name change, and you have it's not Saruman the White anymore, it's Saruman of many colors. Yeah. And you even have the Satan character, who Sauron is not, he's called Morgoth, but that's his changed name after he fell. His name used to be Melkor. And that's, anyway, I'm not sure if there's much to go in, but there's something about naming and this idea of names. I think everybody has a name, and if our names we're more tied to our motivations or our jobs, I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, which is, remind me, is it in the 7th Narnia book? The guy who doesn't know of Aslan, he worships Tash. He's like the prince. You named your son after him.
Emmeth.
Emmeth.
Okay.
There you go. Emmeth.
Yeah, so the Calamine soldier.
Yes, the Calamine soldier.
Yeah.
That just reminds me of that. So there's this part where Galadriel comforts Frodo and tells him to not worry that his quest, is the end of Lothlórien as we know it, because, destroys the ring. And she says, essentially, it is not your concern. Things will be as they will be. And that's interesting, because you can have that in a very destructive way, that mentality, if you are in an ends justify the means type motivation, where this is the most important thing, it helps the most amount of people, so I'm going to do this thing even though it hurts these people, and that's just the way things are. But I think that can be, the way she's saying it is that when you're pursuing a right choice in that frame, then the outcome is not something that you have to try and take responsibility for. It's not Frodo's problem that this is putting. I don't know if this makes sense, but
yeah, there's something. Even Gandalf says something about each role, even a hero's role, is just a small part of every big accomplishment.
Yeah,
right. It's not this idea of a hero being the hero of every aspect of a story is silly. But we're kind of egocentric, and when we tell stories about, Superman is the one guy who's the hero in every context.
It's not like Bilbo when he just gets knocked out at the beginning of the battle and wakes up and it's sweet.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's intentional. And now you might say, well, that's weird. Bilbo's our guy. Bilbo's what the story's about. Why do you have Bard?
And he had the Ring of Power. Shouldn't he make a big difference?
That's right.
Yeah.
Even the story, that if you were to write the story of your hero's journey, even you being a hero is only in a particular context. You play a particular role. You're the burglar, right? You're the ring bearer. You know, you're the gardener. And you can tell that story from that different perspective. I remember we had this conversation a little bit about each character until we have faces. That it's not till the end. You're stuck in Orwell's mind. And so it feels like the story's all about her. And it's only till later when she starts realizing things, it's like, oh, I understand Rivendell better. You could have told this whole story from her perspective, you know, and hopefully there's the type of redemption. She has a similar type of redemption that Orwell has. You definitely could tell the story from Psyche's perspective. And I think sometimes we're only told from Psyche's perspective, and we forget all of the transformations and changes of the people that are going on around us. And that's what's so cool about having this story that has, you know, we haven't seen it so much yet, but in later books for like an entire, and when I say book, because there's 6 books, for like an entire book we're in a different perspective that's not following Frodo around.
Yeah.
So this is Frodo's journey, but it's, to say a main character is almost misleading.
Yeah. I think what I'm driving at is, if you think of Saruman, and if he was approached with the same argument of, hey, you're going to go accomplish this good of destroying the ring and it's going to help the entire kingdom, but Saruman, you're going to diminish and your powers, like how he would have handled that and reasoned through that versus how Lady Galadriel's handling. I think that's what I'm trying to get. It's like
diminish.
She's willing to diminish. She's willing to let things fall because she recognizes that what Frodo's committed to is goodness.
Right.
Whereas,
which means that the ring, what's her ring's name? Nenya business. I think that's what it's called.
2 seconds too long.
I think it's called Nenya.
I saw it was the water. Something was the
right.
Yeah.
Obviously, her realm depends on this power that she has by her ring, but it's not her treasure. Because if it were her treasure, there her heart would be also.
Yeah.
And her ability, her willingness to allow the power of her ring to be destroyed along with the One Ring. It doesn't have control over her, which is the gift or the blessing that she gives to Gimli, that you will have gold and it will not have dominion over you. She can say that because she recognizes something in Gimli, that he's a dwarf and dwarves love gold and you know, but something about him, maybe it was his willingness to go on this adventure in the first place that said, oh, you're a dwarf, but you're not just after gold. Gold's not your treasure. And obviously it's revealed to her by what he asks for, his gift. His gift is relationship focused. He wants locks of her hair.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, because of this experience, it's based on a story. It's this, him having seen beauty. And he even says that it would be better to not have seen it because now that will outshine everything, even his lust for gold.
You have this note that far too easily pleased. Why? That he just asked for hair?
That's a C.S. Lewis line. We are far too easily pleased.
Oh, yeah.
We're far too easily pleased. That note is in reference to gold, right? If gold pleases you, you're not going to be able to find the treasure that is greater than gold. You'll be stuck. You will have prematurely come to your finish line. And somebody like Gimli has already developed to a point where, in comparison to the beauty of Galadriel, gold has lost its luster. And that's what Galadriel shows as well, that she's willing to give up her kingdom for goodness. So is Gimli. That's why she can give that gift.
Yeah. When I listened to the part about Galadriel passing the test with the ring, and then a little bit later on, I read this C.S. Lewis quote, and it just reminded me of the ring part. God has not been trying to experiment on my faith, and I think this is from A Grief Observed, on my faith or love in order to find out their quality. He knew it already. It was I who didn't. In this trial, he makes, and this reminds me of Till We Have Faces. In this trial, he makes us occupy the dock, the witness box, the bench all at once. He always knew that my temple was a house of cards. His only way of making me realize the fact was to knock it down. And after she passes the test, Galadriel says something like, "It almost this relief of, oh, I passed it.
Yeah.
Like I did it." And I think it's cool that like, and this was it was building up. Like she knew she could have taken it, but that wouldn't be who she was. But now it was being offered, and that was the test: is that it was freely offered, and that's what I don't know if she knew that was coming, but she knew that was her test that she needed to pass. And I was thinking about the courage that it takes in our lives to when our faith is being challenged, or when we recognize those weak points, do we see them with that perspective of like, not that I want to just throw myself into the abyss, but like, man, when that challenge comes, I want to be doing everything now so when it hits, I can go through it, and then after I can say, I did it.
Yeah.
Like, that relief of like, you made it through. There's something really powerful that I like in that. I don't know how we intentionally look to have our house of cards knocked over. I don't think we go like looking in the mud. We don't want to touch the mirror of Galadriel, but I think if we're trying to follow that path of making moral choices, it probably lead us there.
Yeah, I have that thought all the time. Am I made of the right stuff? Would I pass the test? I think that's a whole paradigm of being. I think that's kind of what the point of that mirror is. Lewis has that line about God being, we've put God in the docks, and the docks is like it's not the witness stand because that's something else, but the docks are where the defendant sits on trial.
Yeah.
And if you go through life like daring God to prove himself to you, you've got it backwards. No, you're the one on trial. Even Galadriel was the one on trial, and she passed, right? You think of Peter denying Christ, and he didn't pass, but I'm sure his whole paradigm shifted in that moment. Oh, it's not about whether or not, this is about me. This is not about whether that guy, who's carrying that cross, and if I know that guy and I can maybe escape his fate if I remove myself. No, he's not on trial. It looks like it because of this arrangement. He's not on trial. You are on trial. So do you have the ability? And it's a terrifying consideration. Will you pass your test? Will you pass your Abrahamic trial? Will you, when that thing, that dragon that is guarding your hoard of gold, the thing that you treasure will be guarded by a dragon, and it's that exact thing that you most hope it isn't. Will you be able to withstand it? And you can't if your treasure is anything else but the glory of God. If your treasure is anything else, you'll sacrifice for that. But passing that test is everything, because it's like you were saying, it's having this perspective of success being beyond mortality.
Mm-hmm.
So I can say all this, and I know it's not true about me, and it's terrifying. And it's like, oh, please, I'm not ready for the test yet, which might mean that I'm not ready. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever be ready for that test.
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about it because it's making
you won't know until you get past it, and then you have that relief. Like, I guess I was.
I hope. Right.
And until then, let your folly be your cloak.
Should we portage?
Yeah.
So do you know what a portage is? I guess they talk about it.
I think it's when you throw your boat on your back and haul it over land to get to whatever other body of water.
It's a funny thing because the boat helps you on your journey. It'll even do a lot of the work if you're going with the current. And to have to get out of your boat and take all your things out of your boat and then carry your boat over land feels so arduous. It feels so tedious. It's like the opposite. It's like going backwards. It's like listening to, what is it? If you ever listen to like a news podcast or something and then going back a day or a couple days because you think you want to hear the news from previous days, you start listening to it and it's like, oh, I can't listen to this.
It's too old.
Too old. I don't know. That's what came to mind. But it really feels like you're doing this thing. This is like this is, I think, really important for people who get work done. Is they're willing to do portages. They're willing to do this hard thing that feels like they're not on that Mario Kart speed boost. They're going through the rock part that slows you down. With a couple,
hopefully with a mushroom.
Last year I turned 40, and so it's like my friends from high school that turned 40 that same year. We did this like midlife crisis trip. Went to the Boundary Waters up in Minnesota and Canada border. And it's beautiful. It's incredibly beautiful. But getting, you get your map and you have the guide and you need to get to a certain point by, we had 5 days to get there. And so we couldn't just mosey. We had to actually work and paddle a lot every day. And then you come to these portages. And I'm a complainer. I'm a puddle glum. And my friends who I was with are they're like you. They're optimistic, good-natured, good attitude.
Do-thingers.
Yeah. And it's funny because one of the things that I felt like I had to do, and this, I wasn't taking up all the burden, but we had a 3-man canoe, and at the portages, I was just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to carry the canoe every time, because it kind of solves that problem of who's going to carry the canoe every time we get there. But also it was like, there's something about hating this. There's something about hating it that gives it value. And it's almost like something, it was that moment that when my friend told me we would go on this trip and he'd say, oh, and you're going to carry this canoe on your shoulder for a mile at a time. Well, maybe not, only one of them was a mile long. But, a lot longer than it feels like you should be carrying a boat on your shoulders. You're going to do that several times every day. I would say, I don't think I want to go. I didn't know about the portages when we left. When we got in the water, I didn't really even understand what they were. Exactly. I'm so glad I went on that trip. And my memory right now, maybe me telling you this is not trustworthy. I might be framing it in a very optimistic way because it's done. I passed the test, right? But like this experience, it's funny. I'd never even heard that word portage before. Well, I guess I'd read through the books before. I just, didn't really, I think it's called Bader Meinhof, where you learn something new and then you see it everywhere. But this idea of portage is like become this, this is the part that you wouldn't, if you knew about this, you wouldn't have started.
You know that without saying it, you just divulged to anyone listening that you probably do ice baths, right?
The exact same reason. And guess what? The last thing I want to do before I get in every time.
As admittedly 2 40-year-old dudes doing a podcast. And I remember when we talked about Bitcoin, you were like, we're talking about ice baths.
That's right. You can check off. You can check off the box. That's right.
Okay.
No, but that may have been a little too me circus or whatever but anyway, it seems like this almost just random description, but Tolkien was so aware. He'd probably done something like that, or imagine his experience in the war may have had something like that. I mean, going on some dude's trip to a beautiful place is not like going to war, but don't worry, I can spin it that way for my own good.
That's fair. Are we to Boromir yet?
We are.
I know we put it off for a while.
We better get to Boromir. Well, I mean, the book ends before some. I've heard.
Yeah.
Before some tragedy.
All right. So, I feel like we're going to have to add an extra disclaimer. We're going to have to go back and edit the beginning. Just, I don't want to pass on what I've received.
I doubt there's anybody who's as uninformed as you.
Wow. But you said you love Boromir.
I love Boromir.
Why do you love him?
Because, well,
he's weak.
He's not weak.
He's very
That's
strong.
almost his problem. His problem is in in might. I mean, even his physical description, he's not as tall, but he's more sturdy than Aragorn. Sean Bean plays him in the movies, and I love that actor. If you've ever seen any Game of Thrones, he's Ned Stark, who's like just in the first season, and even there, he's like such a good guy. But I don't love Boromir because he's a good guy so much. I love Boromir because I totally get him. I totally understand. And he's treacherous. He's treacherous because he has ulterior motives. His motives are not in line with the Fellowship. And he's upfront with that, but still, he tries to get the ring from Frodo, overtaken by this lust for something that feels good. It feels right to want to protect his city and his people in Gondor. And he's a steward. He's not even the king. I mean, his dad's not even the king. They're kind of like this chip on the shoulder flexing, trying to be. It's like they're like the resume version of of somebody who's accomplished, or on paper is accomplished. It's like, yeah, I'm the Lord of Gondor, not king, steward, because of this. You know, there's this history, and you can go into that, and we probably will a little bit.
To the regional manager.
Exactly. So you can see like this. He's so relatable because it's like every time I tell people, "What do you do?" Right? You meet somebody new, and they say, "What do you do?" And for me, that's a little tricky. It's a trickier thing to answer, especially even if I want to say, "Well, I'm a podcast host." I mean, how lame is that?
Creator.
And it just sounds like this. It sounds like resume puffing.
Yeah.
And you can tell that that's kind of where he's coming from. And now he finally gets to make it real. Every time he's felt insecure about being the second most important possible position, he can finally do something to save Gondor. We like Batman more than Superman. I think men do.
Absolutely.
And it's because he's relatable, and he's not perfect, and he can't just do everything, but he's, as far as all of those qualifiers are concerned, he's sure doing a lot.
Yeah.
And I just think that Boromir represents like the best in men. It's like you can't even say that about Aragorn. Of course, Aragorn is the best in men, but he's got help. I mean, he's a Dunedain. He's not exactly. I mean, there's a huge history to why these types of people. We'll meet another character later, Prince Imrahil, and he's kind of where it's like they're men plus. They're like kind of straddling this elf man boundary, but Boromir's just all human.
That's the T-shirt I want. Men plus. Finally, I was waiting for one.
So it's like, I don't know. I do get a little. This is another thing about modern storytelling is you see certain characters that are that people are unwilling to make fallible, right?
Yeah.
That's like the sequel Star Wars, is they make these characters that are so monochromatic because they don't want to, they don't want to burden the audience with actually having to follow along with somebody's development. So you have these characters that don't have any flaws, and usually they're the perfect example is the Disney movie Mulan and the remake of the live
Mulan.
I know.
Oh,
me too.
Yeah.
And the live action remake of Mulan.
Would you like to stay forever?
The cartoon Mulan is just a bunch of imperfections. She is relatable. She's clumsy. She's ugly. It doesn't really come across in
burnt.
Well, it does. I mean, there's implications that doesn't really come across through animated characters very well. But the ability, I guess, the implication that she can just easily pass as a man and infiltrate, well, not infiltrate, but take the role of her dad, that's what's endearing about her as a character, is that she's imperfect. You watch the live action, and from whatever happened culturally between that cartoon and the live action version is everybody's forgotten all the compelling parts of stories. Now you have this character who is just always in control, always knows exactly what to do. I couldn't even really sit down. I'm sure there's probably aspects of the movie. Wasn't able to watch the whole thing.
Girl power.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's just the girl power. And it's
Are
like,
you saying a story was hijacked with a political agenda? What?
yes. But it's funny because it's this backwards sexism. If you have to say that the only way that Mulan can be interesting or a good role model, let's say, is if she has no flaws, that is worse. But they only ever do that with female characters. It's the sexism that in order for a girl to be compelling in their minds, in these writers' minds, and maybe it's and maybe they're responding to market pressures, who knows, is to make her perfect, right? That's sexist. No, women can be compelling when they're imperfect, right? They don't have to be Galadriels and Goldberries, In this story, I guess that's all we really get is perfect women. Did I just dig myself into a hole with what we're talking about?
We're gonna explore that.
But that idea of like imperfect characters are compelling by their imperfection.
It's almost like I'm confronting exactly what you just confronted with. Wait, all the women in this story are perfect. I was gonna say like it makes them relatable, but then I was like, then is Christ relatable?
No,
Like,
no. And Scripture is not just the red letters. Scripture is not just Jesus. Scripture is a bunch of stories. Scripture is Jonah.
Of humans trying to follow.
Right. Scripture is David. Scripture is all of these characters, Adam and Eve, people who've made choices, and maybe they could be excused, but that's not the point of it. The point is, without excuse, and somebody who's guilty and fallen short of the glory of God, what do? And there's good examples and there's bad examples. But the stories that are moving, not to say that Jesus' story isn't moving, it's moving in a different way. It's the story that gives hope, it's the power, and it's real, so it actually is our redemption. Not the story, but him. He's our redemption. But as far as the story aspect, the pattern, the template of our lives, know thyself, right? I'm not Jesus, so he's not really the best role model in a way. Like Peter's a better role model for me because I don't know what it's like to do things perfectly, but I do know what it's like to fail. Anyway, Boromir, that's just a long-winded way of saying I really like Boromir. And when he betrays, there's always justification. So he's kind of like, okay, you're looking at, well, the betrayal of Saruman is tragic. The betrayal of Boromir is kind of like, is he like Saruman? And here's the spoilers, or I'm not going to spoil any more than I've already done.
Well,
it's look for, what does somebody mean? Where is your character? Is it that you never fail? Or is it what you do after you have failed? How does your failure impact you? And I think there's the temptation. When you fail, the temptation is to find an excuse for your failure.
Yeah, it's when you're talking about Boromir and Saruman, I don't see those two characters overlapping much. And like Boromir, you had the evil behind the smiling eyes, and when he goes and finds Frodo off alone, at first he's like, "Can I just sit with you? I need your comfort." And then it slowly just evolves into this. But it feels out of control, like the way his dialogue progresses. It's not like, it doesn't feel like he committed when he went out to find Frodo, I'm going to take the ring from him. It feels like all of these forces like were able to storm the castle walls and overcome him to the point that he went to attack it.
Yeah, he's in kind of a trance. He falls out of it like immediately, like he's possessed almost.
Yes.
And so I'm reading some George MacDonald books to my kids. We read The Princess and the Goblin, and we're about halfway through The Princess and Curdie. And at the beginning of this book of The Princess and Curdie is just kind of going about not really thinking about doing good or doing bad. And I think he's hunting, but he sees a dove and he shoots the dove with his slingshot and kills it. Then he regrets it immediately because that's not what he was trying to hunt. And he was just kind of absent-mindedly doing this thing. And then when he talks to the great-grandmother, she's like a fairy godmother princess kind of woman, she chastises him not for doing evil per se, but for not doing good. And when we're in this kind of liminal state of not really deciding on what our motivations are, they will default to something that is ultimately evil. Your kids, when they're behaving poorly, it's not because they're conniving. That's just the default setting. They're just entropic. They're just kind of chaotically moving in this direction toward destruction. They have to intentionally go about and do good. And that's what the problem that Boromir, he's not intentionally trying on the same wavelength with Frodo. His success is not in line. He's not decided. He's not covenanted. He's not bound by oath to achieve Frodo's end. And so what it turns out to be is he makes himself susceptible to these possessive powers that prey on the undecided.
Yeah. And when he comes back, I can't remember who says it, and Aragorn knows he's done something, and he asks him, and he gives a high-level, summary, but he doesn't admit to what he did, but he's like, that's all I'm willing to say. And it says something like, they knew he was an honest man, but they also knew he wasn't telling them everything.
Right.
And it's that he didn't lose his goodness, his moral character, all of those things just because he had that moment. At least this is Dan's perspective. I don't think he lost that. He still was this virtuous, good person who became consumed and possessed in this moment because he was not actively fighting. The only people that were able to overcome the ring, it's intentional. It's
Yes.
not something that you just luck out and kind of going back to, are you going to pass your test? You're not going to luck out on it. You have to be super intentional.
Yeah. And I know that that's true about me. It's true about me in every aspect of life. I'm not going to absent-mindedly do my duty to goodness.
Yeah.
I have to be intentional about it.
You might have some weary feet.
Yeah. Hoisting canoes on my shoulder.
Portaging. All right. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. This was fun. I hope you, unlike me, have read the books or seen the movies. Let's see. In our next episode, we will cover Book 3 of The Lord of the Rings, which is the first book of the Two Towers. And candidly, that doesn't mean anything to me, but I'm excited. So, are we doing outro music with this?
Sure, yeah.
All right, here we go.
We can.
Here it goes.
Yeah.
Thank you for being in our book club. If you like the show, please leave a 5-star review. And if you'd like to contact us with questions, comments, criticisms, or corrections, you can send us an email or voice memo at bookclub@mountaineer.media, mtnair.media.
We promise we'll come back to C.S. Lewis, but in the meantime, check out our back catalog of episodes where we talk about your favorite C.S. Lewis fiction.
See you later.
Bye.
The C.S. Lewis Book Club is sponsored by the Bowsacre Academy Self-Governance Initiative.
Because no one learns better than kids.